Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Happy Cells and Souls. My name is Julie Powers and I am a licensed Zumba instructor and a partner with the Juice Plus company. My mission in life is to help people understand that life is better when they're dancing through it, and I want to inspire healthy living around the world. But my expanded mission is to create better health at the cellular level and more joy at the cellular level. And I believe that we only get one body while we're here, so we need to take care of it. And it's also our job to live in a happy, joyful life and to spread that throughout all of the world. And in my life, I have had the honor and privilege of meeting some really remarkable people. And I believe that it doesn't matter where we're coming from in terms of our economic background, social background, political beliefs, religious beliefs. It doesn't matter, because every single person has something to teach us, and we should be ready and willing to learn from those people. And so that's why I get to talk to people on this channel, is to introduce you to some people I've met along the way. And now my baby brother, Scott, has connected me with a lot of really interesting people in our lives. And one of those is Greg Fallon. And he is pretty much a genius, as my brother says. I don't think that that's technically written out in your bio.
No.
As what your credentials are, but it should, because it says that you are the co-founder, director, chairman, and CEO of Nuvve, Nuvve, if I pronounce that correctly. But it doesn't say genius on this list.
No, I keep it simple, humble.
but Nuvve is a really fascinating company, because what I love about it is that I've had a Prius since 2007. So I've loved having my Prius, but mine's a hybrid kind. It's not the kind that you plug in. But I've had 3 Priuses since 2007, and one of them was very short-lived because someone crashed into me and T-boned me and totaled my car after I'd only had it a year. So I'm on my 3rd Prius now. But I think that it's really important for us to take care of our planet. Because just as we only have one body while we're here on this planet, we only have one giant rock to live on, because we've not yet figured out how to live in outer space for real or on other planets. And so what your company has done is you've taken this technology and you've put it into a very usable format that makes sense for people, in order for them to be able to take better care of the planet, and also to be able to get some financial benefit from that as well. And so I'd like for you to kind of explain, what is Nuvve, and how did you guys create this company, and tell us about this really cool technology that is vehicle to grid battery storage for electrical vehicles.
So the concept really, and the father of that technology is Will Campton, was my partner in starting Nuvve. He's a professor at the University of Delaware, was working on renewable generation, mostly wind, and was thinking about, renewable generation is very volatile. Meaning you have times where there's a lot of generation and times where you have less generation. If it's solar, during the day you receive generation, and at night you don't have generation. So, and even when it's solar, if you have clouds coming over your house, all of a sudden your house is not generating. So the idea of storing energy becomes very important in those circumstances. And so in 1996 was kind of a new wave of electric vehicles that didn't went all the way through, but that inspired him to think about the fact that vehicles are parked most of the time. And if you have an electric car, you have a fairly big battery inside that car. And the cost to make that vehicle not just a load where we charge energy, but the ability to also discharge it to the grid is not very high. And so if you add that capability to the vehicle, and then if you have a platform that is able to control a large amount of vehicle, you make them look like what's called a virtual power plant. Meaning, from the grid's perspective, these vehicles that are distributed over a fairly large area would provide some type of services to the grid that usually a power plant is providing. So that was kind of really, the beginning of his thoughts. Cars are parked, 80, 90% of the time. I don't need as much time to recharge them, so let's use them to do this type of grid services. And so the advantage of that is obviously while you are providing grid services, you generate some revenue. And so then you can share that revenue with the vehicle owners and therefore reducing the cost of ownership of those EVs. So I started to work on that in 1996. 2005 are the first prototypes of what needs to go inside the car, what needs to go inside the charging station, and then also a software platform that was able to manage that. And was working with a PGM, which is the transmission system operator on the East Coast. And actually started to participate into markets in 2009. I met him in 2010, and this is when Nuvve started. And so the idea is really, it's helping one, renewable penetration, and it's helping reducing the cost of ownership of electric vehicles, which is an important step because it's not just buying the EV, it's also about all the upgrades that might need to happen at the grid level, right? And we are getting now to a point where the cost of batteries is going down very rapidly. And therefore, EVs are fun to drive. It's not just about environment. Successful products are about multiple factors, especially for the wide adoption. So they are fun to drive, they are silent. And when the price is going to be right, you're going to see a very broad adoption of EVs. And the grid, the way it is right now, is not really set to take that on. And so having a platform like ours, that's basically becoming the bridge between the electric system and the electric vehicles, is essential to integrate those vehicles in a cost-effective way. And so the concept of vehicle to grid is something that's gaining momentum now. A lot of people are talking about it. The noise level climbs. But really, it's kind of one of those words that people don't really know what it means. And so from my perspective, what vehicle to grid means is that you are transforming what is a very volatile load, meaning electric cars are a big load on the system, and it can be unplugged at any time. So it's very unreliable. We are transforming them into a reliable, dispatchable, and monetizable asset. Reliable because we are establishing schedule around those vehicles and when we would be able to use them and what are the best services we can use them for, depending on the probability of them being available. Dispatchable because we can control them on a second-by-second basis. And monetizable because we are accessing markets that are generating some revenue. And then we can decide on how we are distributing that money. So yeah, that's kind of, I think that from a high level, the activities, then the markets and the order in those markets is really what we are developing right now in our strategy and where we are rolling out the technology.
So you were saying that, to be able to schedule the use of the vehicles, I know that you are working a lot with commercial platforms, with schools for the buses and other areas where it's more like a fleet of vehicles, but not as much with the residential, consumer kind of base, but that's coming, I'm sure. So can you tell us about, how is that working for these different sectors of the industry?
Yeah, so we're starting with fleets, one, because their schedule is more well known, but also because they tend to be parked more often at the base, right? And so when you start rolling a technology, there is an initial cost that's bigger than another solution.
Right.
And so you need to make sure that you are overcoming that cost plus some benefits on top of that. So the advantage of fleet vehicles is that they are parked usually 75 to 80% at the same place. And so that's how we are basically able to roll out an infrastructure that's initially more expensive, but that we can overcome because of the availability of those vehicles. School buses are parked 97% of the time, to the point where utilities in the US are calling it the killer app of V2G. And V2G is not just important to help reduce the cost of those school buses, but also, one is it has been studied that the worst place around internal combustion engine school buses is actually inside the bus. So very good for the kids, but also then when you go to an electric bus, they tend to be parked very often. And actually, for an electric vehicle to be parked and doing nothing is not very good for the battery.
Right, that drains the battery out in a different way.
And it basically accelerates the aging of the battery. Whereas if you keep on charging, discharging the battery, you can't keep it fit. And that means you are actually improving the battery life.
Right.
So there are benefits, that are coming with doing what we are doing, as long as the platform really has to be able to do three things, right? One is schedule from the driver, and making sure the primary purpose of the vehicle is to be driven. So you make sure you are doing that. You are committing to certain services to the grid, and you need to deliver on those services. And you need to be able to do those two things while you're also protecting and optimizing the battery at the same time.
Right.
It's important to have a platform that, while it's deciding how to dispatch the needs from the grid onto the vehicles that are available, that decision process is made accounting for those three aspects.
And you used an acronym V2G, and that's vehicle to grid for someone who's watching this that may not have heard that term before. And you're located in San Diego, California, and you have
a San Diego accent, clearly.
You have a San Diego accent, but you are from France, and you do have offices in Newark, Delaware, and in Paris, and in London, and you're working with different groups. Is it the same in each country, or is it very customized for each country based on their electrical platforms, or is it something that's very, usable across the board? How does that work?
That's the challenging piece, right? And so that's three aspects on the platform, right? One is to be adaptable, because we want to be able to go from country to country, or even from states, or even areas in different part of the states of California have different rules and regulations.
Wow.
So you need to have a platform that is adaptable for those different environments. So it's a very broad platform that is able to do a bunch of services, grid services, and then basically the platform is going to decide which services are best, based on the characteristics of a certain geography, and we'll dispatch those vehicles based on that. We make the decision also on how to bid those resources. And then you want to also be adjustable, because in a given geography, electric markets are starting to change. They're going to change very, very rapidly over the next few years, because of more and more renewable EV penetration also is impacting all of that. So you want to have a platform that can adjust in a given geography for those changes. So the idea of being adaptable, adjustable are very, very close to each other, right?
Right.
And then the last piece is to be scalable, meaning standards are trying to come together. They are not always there, but the ability of controlling the vehicle either by talking to the charging station, talking to the vehicle, or talking to another platform that is then talking to those vehicles.
And you do that all through an app, through software?
So we have a platform that's running here, on the cloud, and then we obviously have an app also. The concept of the app is really, how do we interact with the user, right? The user doesn't really care about the type of grid service that we are providing. What we care about is getting something that's cheaper than anything else, or potentially helping make money, but also something where he's in control, right? So for example, we have something called Charge Me Now, or Emergency Charge, which is really a button where you push on it and you say, hey, I've got an unplanned trip, and so I want my car to be ready as fast as possible. So in this case, the car is removed from any type of market that we would have used it otherwise, and it's just charging full speed wherever it's going.
How long does that normally take to charge it in an emergency charge?
I mean, it depends on the capacity where you are, and the size of the battery. But usually those are chargers that are not the super fast chargers, right? This is not the side of the road chargers. This is more like the base chargers, where usually it might take an hour or two to recharge the vehicle.
Gotcha.
So this is not, the purpose of the chargers on the road, where you're going to charge like 150 to 350 kilowatt, is really to solve the on the road problem. And there, you want to charge as fast as you can. Your kids are in the back, are yelling, and I go from.
No, that would never happen.
I go from here to Mammoth, and we have to charge we've had to charge 3 times in the past. The last time the kids are kind of losing it. So you want to charge as fast as you can
Right.
road, but most of people are used to have the gas station model where you go and fill up your car. When you have an electric car today, you don't need a gas station. You just go back home, you plug it, and the next morning the car is ready for you.
Right.
That's a different way. It's only when you are going, how many times do people really go on road trips a year? 2 or 3 times a year max. So charging every day is fine.
Well, I have been learning more about this type of thing, just kind of accidentally, really, because I was on an airplane and sitting next to a man who works for an electric co-op in Colorado. And we got to talking about solar power and people that want to live off the grid and they have all solar panels. And he said the problem is that when they have too much capacity, it goes back up into the grid. And then they have to be able to pull that when there's no sun. And so he said that is the problem, is being able to hold what is being generated from those solar panels when the household doesn't need it. So it's kind of like what you're doing with the cars, and like you have to have a place to put that that energy. It's not being lost, right? And personally, last year I changed over pretty much all of my personal investments for my IRA, everything into more green options, because I don't know, the older I'm getting, the more I realize that we have to take care of this big blue planet, because oh my gosh, we've seen that in the days of coronavirus quarantines, that it was a pretty swift change in our environment, that nature was able to heal pretty quickly without all of the pollution and extra stuff that the humans are doing while we're all locked at home and we're not out messing up the world. It can heal. And so I love that you're taking technology that can help the world.
And on this point, right? I think what I want to emphasize is, there's, I think the oil lobby sometimes is pushing to keep things running the way they are, and people are like, oh, electric vehicles are as bad as gas vehicles, and there are significant differences. The first one is when you go to electric, yes, maybe there's a coal plant generating the energy for that, maybe. But that coal plant is not in the middle of the city. Right. And so the vehicle already just driving in the city is removing all the CO2 from it. A lot of the pollution from the city by driving that EV rather than an internal combustion engine inside the city. So you're moving it away from the cities already. That's step one. Step two is electric vehicles are using energy. Either it's a coal plant, or it's a gas plant, or it's solar, or it's wind. They don't care. If you look at the generation mix in the UK, coal 100 years ago was 99% of the generation. Now coal is 1% or less. Mm-hmm. So we all go through significant generation mix. Gas is still important, but the second step is electric vehicles are much more efficient in the way they are using energy. Compared to, when you think about it, an internal combustion engine is an explosion engine. You have explosions happening, and put your hand on it, it's damn hot. There's a reason why it's so hot. It's because it's inefficient.
Right.
And so the efficiency of electric vehicle is the other thing that it brings to the system, is it makes the optimization of the use of energy a lot better. And as we get more and more renewable into the system, which if you look at the curve, we get more and more renewable coming, that energy that those electric vehicle is using is getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner.
Right.
And there is one way for the cost of energy through renewable, it's going down, right? And so, but that's when energy storage becomes important. Right. And that's when V2G becomes an important piece to get everything together. So it becomes kind of the cement that's putting everything together there. And that's really, I think those three steps, I think, people cannot argue that electric vehicles are better. Than you can say, hey, how do you get the elements inside the battery? And yeah, I mean, I hope people are doing the best to get, to get
Right.
that. But I mean, the oil industry is not better in terms of how it's doing
Well, I mean,
that.
we
So
have to get the energy from somewhere, but for me, I would rather be standing right behind an electrical vehicle that's turned on than a gas vehicle, because you choke to death when you're standing behind the exhaust pipe, right? Of like, you can't just stand there for very long without choking. But somebody can stand behind my Prius until my regular engine kicks in, and they don't even know the car's on, first of all, but they can breathe. And that's, I think, just the basics of, like you said, it moves that out of the cities and it spreads out where the pollution and the air quality issues might be, because it can dissipate. But when it's all stuck in an area with that airflow and everything else, it gets trapped, and people can't breathe. And so people with respiratory issues have that problem. And the sound is also another
yeah,
issue. Sound pollution is real. And
yeah.
so I appreciate you giving us a lesson in V2G, and I find it fascinating, and I think that it's important for all of us to take steps to really seeing where we can make changes along the way. And you have obviously done that in a bigger and broader way than most of us can.
We're getting
So
there. We're getting there. You see a lot of momentum. The electric school buses are moving along very nicely. We have great partners. Companies that have been doing things for a long time are adjusting. So it's very exciting to see what's going on right now.
well, thank you so much, Greg. We really appreciate learning today. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.